Since you've been fortunate enough to click on this video, I'm sure you've already watched dozens, not hundreds, of videos about wealth. However, the common factor among 99% of these videos is that they talk about how to achieve wealth and make millions of dollars by building a business that brings in substantial monthly income, as if this is the only way to become wealthy. But the funny thing is that the vast majority of millionaires are actually employees with low salaries, working from 9 to 5. It may seem a bit shocking, but don't worry, dear viewer. I am the philosopher of money, and in this video, I will show you how these millionaires did it and how they turned their small incomes into large fortunes. I promise that if you watch the video from beginning to end, take it seriously, and apply everything mentioned, you will become one of them. Let's not prolong the introduction any further. I'll leave you with the intro, and let's begin. Before we begin with the practical steps, I need to introduce you to some important concepts that most employees and low-income individuals like yourself are unfamiliar with. The first concept is SII, which stands for Secure Investment Income. This concept summarizes the best type of investment that employees and low-income individuals who are inexperienced in stock investing can engage in. Simply put, let's assume you are a waiter at a cafe. The coffee you serve seems very delicious. Just kidding, dear viewer. Let's assume the cafe where you work pays you a monthly salary of $1,000, and your monthly expenses are only $750. You want to invest the remaining $250 in the stock market, but you don't know anything about stocks, and this world seems complex to you. In this case, the best option is to invest your $250 monthly in well-known investment funds that include the best stocks and provide annual returns with low risk and minimal effort on your part. The most famous of these funds is the S&P 500, which has delivered an annual return of around 20% over the past 20 years. This was an example of secure investment income. I hope this clarifies the concept. Let's move on to the second concept, which is the AIS concept, representing inflation-resistant savings. I know these terms might be a bit complex and you might be hearing them for the first time, but I promise, dear viewer, that I will do my best to simplify them. Inflation-resistant savings are the opposite of the savings most people engage in, such as saving to start a project or buy something. Instead, this type of savings is primarily aimed at building an emergency fund. For example, saving to create an account with 6 months' worth of expenses in case you lose your job, or an account with 12 months' worth of expenses to cover medical costs if you fall ill. However, it's important to note that these accounts should be updated annually based on the inflation rate affecting these funds. For instance, if you saved $6,000 for medical emergencies in 2020, and inflation increased this amount by 3% during the year, the amount you should allocate for medical emergencies in 2023 would be $6,180. I sincerely hope you understand this concept, and if you find it difficult, I recommend replaying this section of the video. Now let's move to the last and most important concept, which is compounding effect. This concept involves the power of small actions over a long period. For example, if you want to master a new language and you improve yourself by just 1% each day, after a year, your proficiency in that language will increase 32 times. In other words, you'll speak it fluently. As you can see, this concept applies not only to money, but to all areas of life. Now let's take an example of this great concept in the context of our video. Suppose you are an ordinary employee earning $2,000 per month. If you engage in secure investment, represented by SIL, say for example, you invest $500 monthly in the S&P 500 for 10 years, you will have $150,000 after those 10 years. This is if you only invest $500 per month. I hope you have grasped this concept that has created the wealth of the rich. Now that you understand these concepts, let's move on to the practical steps. The first step is to try to reduce your expenses and avoid unnecessary subscriptions and products. I know you've heard this repeatedly, but this step is one of the most important things you need to do. Naturally, I don't mean to suggest austerity or self-deprivation, but rather to eliminate unnecessary expenses. The second step is to engage in side jobs alongside your primary work. This might be a bit tiring, but for a simple employee with a low income, this step is highly effective. For example, if you work at a company as a video editor, you can produce videos on freelance platforms like Fiverr and Freelancer during your days off. This way, you can see your skills and how you can monetize them as side job. If you don't have any specific skills, you can either take up side jobs, or learn a profitable skill that allows you to do side work later on. The third step is to use the concept of inflation-resistant savings, meaning you should save for health emergencies covering 12 months of expenses and for job-related emergencies covering 6 months of expenses, among other emergency funds that protect you from major financial crises that could ruin your financial life and disrupt all your investment plans. Of course, you need to account for the inflation rate annually and adjust the amount accordingly to avoid the pitfalls of rising living costs. The final and most important step to take after these steps is to determine the amount you can invest monthly and invest it in reputable investment funds with a recommendation for the S&P 500. Maintain discipline and patience by investing that amount monthly for a period of 10 to 20 years, depending on your personal preferences. In conclusion, I will provide an example that summarizes everything you have learned in this video. Let's assume you work at McDonald's and earn $1,300 a month. After your shift, you were browsing YouTube and watched my video, understanding it well. You then decided to take the steps mentioned in the video seriously and apply them. The first thing you did was to follow the first step by trying to reduce unnecessary expenses. You found that you were buying a large amount of chips and soft drinks daily, which were harmful to your body and your bank account. So you decided to stop and replace them with healthy and economical food. You also discovered that you were subscribed to many monthly services that you didn't actually need, so you canceled them. Suddenly, you found yourself saving $500 a month and realized that your actual expenses were only $1,000. Now you decided to move to the second step, but you found that you didn't have any skills to leverage to increase your income. You started learning graphic design, and after a while, you felt you were getting the hang of it. You offered graphic design services on Fiverr, and after a week, you got your first client. Over time, the number of clients increased, and you began earning $1,000 a month from side work, even though you could actually earn multiples of that amount. Now that an additional $1,000 has been added to your income, you are earning $2,500 a month, while your expenses are only $1,000. Thus, you have a surplus of $1,500 a month. You are now sure that the information from the video was the reason for changing your life, and you are motivated to proceed with the third step, which is applying the concept of inflation-proof savings. You created an emergency fund account and deposited $1,500 a month into it. After 4 months, you opened a health emergency account and deposited $1,500 a month into it. After 8 months, you had completed both accounts. You felt a great sense of relief because you had protected yourself from falling into financial crises that could disrupt your life and ambitious plans. You also made a commitment to increase the amount representing the annual inflation rate on the principal amount to avoid falling into the inflation trap. Next, you were ready to take the fourth step, which is leveraging compound interest in your favor and investing your money in a safe investment vehicle. You searched for an investment fund suitable for your financial situation and found no better option than the famous S&P 500 fund. You began investing $1,500 a month in the S&P 500 and committed to maintaining this discipline for 20 years. After 20 years, even if we assume a major economic downturn that affected stocks and limited their growth, making the annual return of the fund only 12%, which is unlikely, you will have $1,300,000 and become a millionaire. Thus, the video helped you transform from a McDonald's worker whose salary barely covered his expenses to a financially capable and wealthy individual. This concludes our video. I hope it was useful and helps you improve your financial life. If you liked the video and found it helpful, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. By the way, as of the moment I am writing this, there are still no comments or subscriptions, meaning that if you take these actions, you will be the first to do so in the channel's history, and your name will be written in golden letters in the channel's record. That's all. If you've made it this far, dear viewer, I want to tell you that you are special. I love you, and I wish you success in your financial and personal life. Peace and love.